All right. So you know the drill on these. It's a power rankings. I'm gonna rank the top 10 performers of January, and hopefully it's interesting. One thing interesting about this month for me actually was the people that went deep in events were a lot more consistent than usual, and so there were fewer kind of honorable mention people on the periphery than usual, which is probably a sign of slightly waning activity, which is a real shame. So hopefully next month there are kind of more people in that almost made it slot. Here, I normally don't say honorable mentions, but here there were two people. Yeah, Dalamar and Vialvo were really close, but ended up not including either. But normally there's a few more people in consideration. That said, did anything even happen in January? Yeah, lots of things did. We have Yevon's Champions League. We're through the group stages into the knockouts. There have been 5 GBs this month. I counted a GB that hadn't quite finished in December as happening in January. 3 weekly opens. The closed fun GB, about 2/3 of the time of it happened this month. Admittedly, most of the games happened in the prior month, but I will be counting it as an event for this month, January 2022. And a little thing called Nephilim finished. I will be giving credit to people that made deep runs, whether or not the games happened this month. I think the only games that did happen this month were for the finals, but I will be giving a lot of credit to the semifinalists. I actually forgot to consider Asila for the list because he didn't play anything else. I don't think he'd have made it just on the semifinals, but you could certainly argue that anyone who made the semifinals should be on this list. And as I hope I've made clear in my videos, tons of respect for how Asila played that tournament. Clan League also began. We haven't gotten many games yet. Dalamar did win to start it off, and that came really close to, again, getting him on the list. We had a few very close to making it, but not many games have been played yet, and most of the games played have been tied so far. I should also admit I'm doing this before the final GB of the month is technically finished, so results are not going to be entirely up to date. It will be close to correct. I think we know who the top 2 finishers in the GB will be, but not who's going to come 3rd or 4th yet. So let's get to the rankings. In 10th, we have Doom Train. So Doom Train got his first win in a weekly. He had tied in the first weekly for first with me. It was a 3-way final, and we both beat Sir Smokes and tied each other, and then I had to go and we agreed to split it. But this one he won solely in the 12th one, beating Dalamar in the finals, and followed it up with another top 4 the next week. So, a title, another top 4. This could have been pushed off if the 14th weekly had finished this morning. It didn't. If Vialva wins, I think he sneaks this spot. He might even get one higher because he also, much like Doom Train, he'll have a win in a weekly and another top 4, but his win will have been in a slightly stronger field and more rounds, a 12-person rather than an 8-person tournament. If Turdz wins, he probably jumps even higher. Turdz, spoilers, did not make my list, but he has 2 top 4s in GB14 and GB16, and he's going to come second in GB17, so that's 3 top 4s. And if he also adds this weekly, honestly, Turdz should have made the list anyway. No, I'm not going to re-record. Screw you, Turdz. You're not making the list this month, but he clearly deserved to. And if he wins that finals, probably deserves to be 6th or 7th. Maybe even a little higher. In 9th, we have Kazdan. It's fitting that my week I'm interviewing Turdz and showing his games and trying to celebrate him, I'm also going to go screw you and cut him from the list when he clearly deserves to be there. Anyway, in 9th we have Fusion Cloud. I always write Kazdan in my head. I just changed the name to what he used to call himself. I really shouldn't, though. When people change what they're calling themselves, I should adjust what I call them. So he went 19 games unbeaten in GB15, 19 whole games. Going into the 20th game, he had the first undefeated streak to play for, which just seems so impossible to achieve in closed, or just so absurdly difficult. And he loses the 20th game to Wingus, and what a heartbreaker. Incredible run. He also scored 5.75 points a game. So if we think about that, I'm going to bring up the page for myself so I can think about it properly. That's plus 15. So he loses the final game 6-4. So he was on plus 16. The record is plus 18. So if he had won his final game 7-3, he would have tied the all-time record for points. If he had won it 8-2, he would have set the record. And if he had won it 9-1, he would have been the first person to average 6 for a tournament. So close to just an incredible set of things done. I wonder also, because he went 19 straight unbeaten games. If he was coming into it without having lost immediately in the one before that, without having lost at the end of it, I hadn't actually checked this, but he might have he probably did set the record for most games unbeaten in a row, including crossover between tournaments. So let's see if I can find that. Luckily, Dalamar has put up stuff. So that hasn't updated for the most recent. So, okay, let's see if I can figure this out. This is definitely excellent podcasting. In the previous GB, all right, I can bring up the Discord. We're going to find this. In the previous GB, so he went 19 straight without losing in that GB. And I'm going to the page. Where is it? Golden Boot Games. Gotta find Fusion Cloud. And it's a couple GBs ago. This might not be worth it. But I know the previous record, I think, was Turdz with 20 straight unbeaten, though it wasn't all in 1 GB. And I think Delial had 19. So okay. Gotta find the previous post from Fusion Cloud. Just found his tournament winning post, but we need the previous one. Okay, so he went the last 3 games without a loss. He lost the 4th to last game. So that's a total streak of 22 games unbeaten in GB play, which is the record, breaking Turdz' previous record. Or Delial's. One of them at 20, one of them at 19. But I think Turdz had 20, and Fusion Cloud now sets the record with 22. So even with just one event going deep, that event was so impressive, I think he makes my list pretty comfortably, actually. In 8th, we have Zoom, and Zoom had 2 top 4s in GBs, but the thing that really pushed him onto this list as impressing me was that he also runner-up to the 13th weekly. And maybe, yeah, this seems like around, I guess if Turdz loses in the finals to Vialva, Turdz is a slightly better version of this resume, but it's pretty similar. Anyways, just really solid both in open and in closed. Zoom is definitely a closed specialist, and I think a fantastic closed player, but it was really nice to see him also showing very well in open this month. In 7th, we have someone arguably a similar kind of resume, Addy. He wins the 2021 Closed Player of the Year award, I think. It's going to be really embarrassing if he didn't, and I just said that because then everyone will feel bad. No, he did win. Yeah, that's what. Okay. So he wins the Closed Player of the Year award with 6 votes, beating second place Turdz with 4. And so he wins the Fun Closed GB in style, I think by a decent margin, comes second in GB 13. But also, I think he's been playing really well in open. And one thing I really like about Addy is he doesn't pick what games he's taking, right? There are lots of people, and in some moods I am certainly one of these people, who will see 2 games and will pick the one to take that looks a bit easier. And Addy regularly takes games that are randomly open or closed, or are open games, even though he is clearly a much stronger closed player, but that doesn't mean he's weak in open. And he got 3 ties against me in the recent Open GB. I didn't beat him. He found a fantastic tie in the second game, and I had to play quite cleverly to survive in the third. So Addy, I think, really, really strong open player, even better closed. But also, my guess, and this might be wrong, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, is that he used to be a lot better at closed. But because he takes open games so freely and practice, and that means, he's playing Deli all the time, he's quickly gotten better at open. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe he was always better than I thought. But my impression is he was solid and he's just getting better. In 6th, we have Yevon. And Yevon is, I think, won more events in December than any other player and is continuing to just win lots of events in January. So since the Fun Open GB, which is his real kind of breakthrough event in the site's return, he won GB 13. He also won the 13th weekly, finishes top 4 in the Fun Closed GB, the month-long one, and in GB 14. In his Champions League, in the group stages, he scored 19 points, which is 4 more than anyone else scored. Midas was second with 15. A couple people had kind of 12 to 14, and Yevon had 19. So this is a 3-1-0 scoring system, so that means other people were putting up scores like 4 wins, 2 ties, 2 losses, something like that gets you 14 points, and Yevon has 6 wins, 1 tie, 1 loss for 19 points. The best record in the group stages by a significant margin. The one thing stopping him from going higher is he went out round 1 in Nephilim, and I believe everyone higher on this list made the semifinals of Nephilim. So this is the one differentiator. Nephilim obviously is the biggest event. We'll see how he does in Clan League. He has a real chance to push for bigger events there, success in bigger events. But he did great. He also picked up a couple wins against Deli, which I give tons of credit for because I have not yet beaten Deli in a weekly open or non-GB type event, and he's beaten me 2 or 3 times in those. And so massive respect for anyone grabbing wins against him. And I think Yevon grabbed 2 this month. Maybe 1 this month, 1 last month. In 5th, we have DJ. So he wins the most underrated player award. And my guess is that was partially due to him appearing in the Nephilim semifinals, taking out Piggy Man, much to my surprise. And I suspect that was a big part of it, though also, seeing him play, you could see this is not a name you hear a lot necessarily, especially, if you watch my kind of all-time videos, but he's been playing great. But he also has a bunch of other events. It's not just the Nephilim semifinals run this month. He also finished top 4 in the monthly Fun GB and in GBs 13 and 16. And I thought the most impressive thing was even if you look at the GBs, he doesn't make the leaderboard, he doesn't make top 4. His worst GB, he scored 5.15 per game, which is a very solid result, right? Every single GB, he's putting up a plus. The current open one, he's not going to play enough games to finish, but I think he's like +3 through 9 games, which is like averaging over 5.3, which is just very, very good. And, he put up a 5.31 in another one he didn't finish, and that would have been a top 4 if he'd finished. So basically every GB he's played, he's put up results whether or not he finishes, but that are like top 4 range if he had played enough games. And I think that's just a crazy streak because that's over 5 whole GBs. And if you include the monthly Fun GB, that's 6 GBs where every single one of them, he's put up a top 4 level of play, whether or not he actually played enough games to get that top 4 finish. So huge month for DJ and well-deserved award, I think. In 3rd and 4th, we have Seto and Midas. And they're kind of similar because neither of them played a ton, and both of them made the finals of Nephilim. Seto came 2nd, Midas came 3rd, but otherwise Midas has been more active. He got a top 4 finish in CT14, and he's currently in the wildcard round of Yevon's Champions League, and he was the 2nd highest scorer after Yevon in the group stages with 15 points. So despite being in the wildcard round, as I am too, he did it scoring a number that would have won him any other group. Though perhaps the lower scores in other groups may have been because those were more difficult groups to score highly in. So, could go either way there. But point is, Midas has put up really nice, a couple nice results outside of his 3rd place. But neither of them really move the needle that much. If he wins Yevon's tournament, that's a big jump or makes it deeper. But right now he's in the top 12. Hard to give a ton of credit yet for that. And a top 4 finish, that can be just winning one round in a smaller weekly tournament. So overall, I kind of just lean towards Seto. He did come second over Midas' third, and I do think he's the clearly better player, which is not to say Midas isn't a great player, but Seto is, absolutely all-time top tier, whether or not he's currently in good form. So I'm going to give Seto third and Midas fourth, but Seto will likely drop off the list next month unless he plays in anything. In second, we have Delial. And Delial always places really highly, and I sometimes think, Delial's kind of had a down month, and then I actually look at what he's done, and he came second for me. So he made the semifinals of Nephilim. He missed the finals on a mouse slip, so that really sucks, but it also means it doesn't say much about his skill as a player. But he also, even if we just say he made a semifinals and no more, he also won 2 GBs this month out of 5, which puts him up to winning 25% of the GBs he's played. He's played 16 GBs. He's won 4, right? Normally, GBs have between 10 and 25 players in them, usually kind of 14, 15. And he's winning 25% of them. And these are, closed tournaments where it's easy with different rule sets, where it's easy for randomness or a rule set not clicking to hurt your score, or, someone happens to go on a crazy run and, if Fusion Cloud never loses, you're not going to beat him, right? And yet Delial has personally won 25% of the GBs he's played. And every time I look at his scores on Dalamar's wonderful stat page, something new jumps out at me as insane. So for instance, this time, and there's so many things you could point to on his page. One of them, actually, that isn't here, is you can look at head-to-head record against other players. There is no player, I think, with more than +1 against Delial over the times they've played him. There is no one in GBs who is basically running more than even against Delial. And if you take other great performers like me, and I haven't even played that much, there are multiple people with +2 or +3 against me. Turdz, there's multiple people with +3. Everyone, there's multiple people who so far have had your number, except Delial, where no one does. And another fun fact, the one I listed here, was I won the most recent GB. And I won it, as we'll get to shortly, with a really good score. And I had a lower win percentage. I won 9 out of 20 games. Than Delial is averaging over the 15 GBs he played entering it. He was at 47.3% win rate, and I just won a GB with a really high score and still won less than he is averaging. Which is just crazy to me, because there's all these things of someone in a sport peaks, and at their peak, some really good player peaks. Maybe at their peak, they start looking like one of the all-time greats. But the all-time great did that for 10 seasons in a row, right? And this is one of those things of I just had the best GB I'm ever going to have, and Deli's average win rate is still higher than that. So I thought that was just nuts, but you can look at his page. Whatever you find will be surprising and fun. Interestingly, breaking news as I say this, the record for most ties in a weekly open is 5, and that has just been tied by the match of Turdz versus Fialva. The record of 5 was held by Akiyama versus Midas, which I believe was also a finals. But this is Turdz versus Fialva. This is the second match to ever reach 5. If they tie one more game, this is the most tied matchup in weekly open history. And we have more for Delial to say. He also has 2 more weekly top 4s. He's in the wildcard round of Yevon's Champions League, having been drawn in a just horrible group, where I believe he came second place ahead of Akiyama, who will not make this month's top 10, has not been near as active. Hope to see him more next month. And we get to our winner, which boringly is me. I have not been a player of the month yet, but I do think I deserved it this month. Whoever won Nephilim was going to get this slot. I did say that before. Yeah, I think whoever wins the majors gets a big boost. I also won my first GB. I'd never won a GB before. And I did set the record that Kazdan narrowly missed of the first to go undefeated in a GB, though I did it in open rather than closed. And obviously that was very good for me. My closed results were pretty miserable this month. So going on to the fun closed GB, I was one of the worst performers. I think I won 2 of my last 3 or 4 games played. So at some point I was like no wins, 7 losses, 5 ties or something like that. And then made it look a little better at 2 wins, 6 ties, 7 losses. But still, I was absolutely crushed in that tournament. And if you wanted to argue I shouldn't be here, you can certainly point to that as an absolutely disastrous result. I did not have a balanced month. I did very well in open, and I was appalling in closed. And there are certainly people who had much more consistent cases than I did in both forms of the game. But I think overall, winning a major and, setting a record in a GB is pretty worthy of a first place finish here. And that's all I got. We'll see what happens next month in the shorter month of February. I personally am intending to play more of the closed GBs than I normally do. I'd like to get back into closed form. And I'm really excited to see if Turdz Vialva can set the record for most ties. So that's going to be fun news coming down the pike. And yeah, I guess that's it for the power rankings. See you in February.